Welcome to another episode of Live with Laura. I'm your host, Laura Hettiger. For a moment, I want you to think about tragedy. Everyone is going to experience some type of tragedy in their life. But how do you overcome it and continue to move forward in the face of it? That's what we are going to find out today with one of St. Louis's own, John O'Leary. John is joining me in studio today, and I am so thrilled that he is being so giving of his time. John, it's very good to see you.
Laura, we're in hour 4 of partying with one another, so I've been enjoying my morning with you.
I appreciate that. Before we get into so much of your story, I have listened to some of your podcasts, and I want to start with a question for you. If you knew today was your last day on earth, how would you be spending it?
I'm blessed to do work that I would do for free. So I'm a motivational speaker for whatever that means, and a podcast host, and I'm part of the team at Mercy. And there's a lot of things we do, but I don't do any of it candidly for the money. So I would probably have done a lot of the same things I did today. I would have seen you. After this interview, though, I'd probably not go back to work. I'd probably go home and grab my kids, scoop them up, take them to a park, and just try to spend as much time with them as I could today. I would remind them of their value and their dignity, whether dad is in front of them or not. I'd hit up church with those kids. We were there yesterday, but we would go again today because I believe in a God who built us for moments of both beauty but also struggle and saves us in the midst of both. So we'd go to church together whether they wanted to or not. We'd go to Ted Drew's. We'd probably go back to Forest Park. I'd bring my mom out for a little bit, have a little bit of a party in my backyard with friends, and end at about midnight with Beth on the dance floor dancing to Sweet Caroline.
I love all the colors that you brought into this. I could see your perfect day truly unfolding. And this is a deep question that a lot of people don't usually ask, but it's something you've had to think about since a very young age. Please take me back to 1987. What happened?
Yeah, so it starts kind of a couple weeks before. I just witnessed kids in my neighborhood playing with fire and gasoline. And, Laura, you saw kids around you growing up. You figure if they can do it, so can you. So Saturday morning, January 17th, 1987, Mom and Dad are gone. House is mine. I walk into the garage, bend over a 5-gallon can of gasoline. It's made out of metal, too heavy to pick up, so I light a piece of cardboard on fire, bent down next to that can, and the goal was to pour a little bit of gasoline on top of this little flame. And before the liquid came out, the fumes, pulled the flame in, split the metal in two, picked up the 9-year-old, and launched me 20 feet against the far side of the garage. You have 2 kids, you can imagine. So I find myself that day in my parents' garage on fire, 20 feet away from where the thing all began. And I just panicked. We all were taught to stop and drop and roll. And yet when you find yourself in that position, frequently, I've talked to many burn survivors, many of us run. So I ran into my mom and dad's house, eventually stood on top of a rug like the one you and I are on right now. And I just remember praying for a savior. And I see my brother Jim coming toward me, and he's 17, I'm 9. And as a kid, I remember thinking, God, anyone else, not Jim. He can't do anything. But this is his day. He picks up a rug, he beats down the flames, carries me outside, saves my life. And the final thing I'll say about all of that is 1987, the lifesaver of the year for the state of Missouri was not a first responder or a police officer or some veteran. It was a 17-year-old junior at DeSmet Jesuit High School who had not done a lot of generous things for others in his life before that moment. And yet in that moment, Jim changed and has remained changed. I saw him yesterday at my mom and dad's house. He's just visiting his mom. My brother changed in the blink of an eye. And I think that's an opportunity and an invitation for all of us every day.
Mm-hmm. He grew up in that moment, it sounds like.
I was asked recently of me, how did this change your siblings? And I think tragedy changes all of us. You've been through your own difficulties, and I have been through mine. And challenges and tragedies either make us more of a victim to our circumstances, more cynical, more negative, more mad, or it draws forward the best of your qualities, resiliency and courage and faithfulness and love and tenderness, compassion. My brother Jim became all those things that day, but so did his 4 sisters. So did his 2 parents. And thankfully, so did his little brother John. Like, we all grew individually the right way. And we did that not only individually, but collectively. Our family remains a single unit, in no small part because what we went through as young kids.
This is January of 1987. The fire department gets there. They rush you to Mercy, which has a fantastic burn unit. What do you remember about those moments?
Yeah, so on the drive to Mercy's 90 seconds from my house, and that's not an exaggeration. We live right at Ballas and 270. So the ambulance picks me up and swoops me into the back and takes me down the street. And I remember that the man's nice, the kindness of his heart. Even a kid picks up on that. He kept trying to ask me where it hurt. And I'm like, man, everywhere. And he just tried to soothe the pain. And we pull up to Mercy. I remember in my mind a doctor and a nurse, and it was kind of frantic, and things were really chaotic for a little bit. And then everyone leaves the room, and my dad walks in. It's like they made this into a movie, but this was like a scene in a movie. It's so chaotic, and then it's silent, and then the curtain draws back, and you see your old father, and he was very old. He was 39, so like just ancient. This old man moving toward me. And I remember thinking, he's going to kill me, and I'd just blown up a can of gasoline. I burned down his house. And the very first thing my father said to me, he's an Army veteran. He's awesome, but he's fair. The first thing he says, Laura, was, John, look at me when I'm talking to you. And in our family, that meant the kiss of death. So I look up at my dad, and then he goes, I have never been so proud of anyone in my entire life. And my little buddy today, this morning, I'm glad to be your dad. And then he says, John, look at me. I love you. And there's nothing you can do about it. And as a kid, 9 years old, I just remember thinking, nobody told my dad what happened. Clearly dad does not know I burned down his home. And what you know, because you're a mom, and what your listeners and viewers know, because they love people even more than themselves, is what happens in the midst of chaos when you finally turn your life over to something bigger than you. And my dad came in with one lens. He saw what actually mattered. He has a 9-year-old child with burns to 100% of his body. My father changed. He turned away from fear and anger, leaned into faith and love. He changed, and that morning I caught. So those are distinct memories from January 17th.
You have another distinct memory, though, once your mom walked in.
Yeah.
Will you please walk us through her conversation with you?
Yeah. My mom, I was with Mom yesterday, and I'm grateful for that. My mom remains a warrior. I will not tell you her age, or I won't be invited to Thanksgiving this year, but she's a veteran of life, seen a few Mother's Days herself. And in 1987, she gets a call when she's out with a couple of my sisters that your little boy's been burned and he's at Mercy. And so she leaves Kirkwood, drives to Creve Coeur, walks into this room, and down the hall is where I'm being treated. So she says she learns about the significance of the struggle. And finally she says, Doctor, are you telling me that my baby's got a 50-50 chance of surviving? And the doctor said, Mrs. O'Leary, that's not at all what I've said. Your son has less than a 1% chance of surviving this first night, and those odds will never go up. And it was Dr. Avajan's way of gently letting her know that he's going to die. Like, we'll fight for him. We'll pray for him. We'll work with him. But expect what will come. It's not what you hope. So my mom hears this, and it breaks her heart, but she walks in. She takes my hand. For the viewers, they can see my hand today, like fingers amputated. And as difficult as this may be to look at, I promise you what she saw that morning was much harder. She takes my hand in hers, she pats my bald head, and she says, I love you, which is great language for a mother to speak to a child. And I said, Mom, knock it off with the love. Am I going to die? And this warrior mom says, do you want to? Which you and I talked earlier today about what it looks like to parent well today. And as hard as it is to put responsibility back into a child's lap, I think that's a big part of it. Do you want to? Your choice. And I looked at my mother and I said, Mom, I don't want to die. I want to live. And her response was, good. Then baby, take the hand of God, walk the journey with him, and fight like you never fought before. She said, Dad and I will be with you. We're not going to leave you, but do your part and fight. So that was, Laura, for us, the start of the journey. We'd never heard of bandage changes. We'd never heard of skin grafts. We'd never heard of amputations. We'd only been in Mercy once to be born, so it was a very good day when we left that place. And now we are coming back into this hospital needing the very best of others. It's a strange thing in life to recognize how little power you have. But when you do it well with the right people, it can also be incredibly empowering.
Your story has been told on podcasts, through books that you've written, and now a movie, Soul on Fire, which you can stream right now on Netflix. I did that last night in preparing for today, and there was a question that you communicated to your parents in that hospital bed. It was, why me? Do you still ask that today?
Well, the scene you're asking about, first of all, the movie's accurate. Now, they're telling a life story, a 50-year life story in an hour and a half. So you have to truncate a couple characters into one and stuff like this, but it's an accurate story filmed on location in St. Louis where it happened. So that the scenes on the screened-in porch are shot in my mom and dad's screened-in porch. The scenes shot at St. Louis University are at SLU, at Busch Stadium, Shrine of St. Joseph. That's where John and Beth got married. So it's a really accurate film. And the scene you're referring to is a little boy in a hospital bed still probably going to die. And if he does not die, what kind of life is there for him? That's a hard thing, but that's the reality. He's got no skin. He can't move. No one has any clue when and if he's going to get out of here. And what he's clicking, because he can't talk yet, to his mom and dad is, why me? This agony, this pain, these surgeries, it's barbaric, it's so difficult, why me? And I don't think I'm the only one who's asked that question. I have a feeling you have, through some struggles you've been through in your life. I know our viewers have, and the struggles they've been in their life. And you ask the question, do you still ask that question? And the answer is, of course. But perhaps surprisingly today, I don't ask it anymore as a victim wondering where God is in my circumstances. I ask it empowered, motivated with grace, knowing exactly where God is in my circumstances. So I still ask why me, but it's not like, oh, gosh, another day of agony. Not at all. I look in the mirror and I see scars every morning. And one way to look at that is with sadness and regret. And if I don't say occasionally I see it through that lens, I'd be lying to you. But for the most part, I look at it as if the wounds, the scars exist because wounds have been healed. And I recognize my life as a gift. My job today is to remind others of that same truth in their lives. I'm not the only one whose life is a miracle. When you go through life yawning at your coffee not being made just right, or it's 59 outside this morning when we got up, a little chilly, you're missing the majesty of this life. And my work today has far less to do with burn care and far more to do with life care. Like, your life matters. Act like it. So I ask why me every day. I just ask it with a grin on my face.
Do you think you would have as big of a life perspective today, nearly 40 years later, if you did not go through a tragedy of that level?
Right. So I'm in my late 40s. I'd probably still be playing baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals.
In your late 40s, yes.
I'd be in my 25th year. Everyone would be wearing number 27 O'Leary. It'd be a beautiful thing at Busch Stadium. We'd be successful. We'd be in first place still. My life would not have been as hard as it was by a long shot, which means today it would not be as good as it is by a long shot. Everything in my life, including this interview, is the result of a tragic childhood circumstance. Everything, including the formation of faith, the galvanization of our family as one, how we grew in character during that season, not just John, but our family, where I went to high school, where I went to college, a chance encounter with a brunette at a fraternity party, 4 kids that I got to send off to school today. a dog that wags its tail for whatever reason every time I come in the back door, even if I don't pet it. So like everything about my life is the result of tragedy. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know what I would be doing today, but there's no way it would be as meaningful or as good as what I'm currently doing today.
Your website, John O'Leary Inspires. Why'd you choose Inspires?
The odd thing is I've chosen, like, it's like the 5th iteration in our business. I named it 4 previous times anything other than John O'Leary. I don't like, as you've probably sensed from me, I don't like the light shining on me, even in an interview like this or in a film or books or I don't like the bright lights. I like the light being reflected to the people who deserve the attention, to the custodial staff at Mercy. They saved my life. I didn't do that. It was Lavelle and the team. Nurse Roy, Sissy, Colleen, my PT Brenda, my OT Julie, Dr. Vachiavajan, Tom Vitale, Steve, the leader right now. Like, it's everybody other than John as to why I'm here today. So every business name leading up to John O'Leary Inspires was about everybody other than John. But my team and my board of advisors finally challenged me to recognize, John, you've got to kind of own a little bit of it so you can draw more people into the conversation. So as painful as it is to put my name out there like I do now, only so that the website can be more identifiable, so we can draw more people in, so ultimately we can inspire more people to live into their best lives, which at the end of the day, Laura, is less about success, like us rising, and more about us lifting up others. And, I'm sure as the segment progresses, we can talk about Jack Buck or Nurse Roy or anyone else who stepped forward in my journey. But what made them really remarkable is not how successful they became, it's how they chose to use that success to lift up others. And so John O'Leary Inspires.com is ultimately about inspiring you and everyone else who checks out our website to recognize success is fine, but trophies rust and beauty fades and money spends. It's how we can lift up those around us on the journey forward.
I am already inspired, and we're just 17 minutes into this conversation. What a true treat and delight that we have John O'Leary with us. We're coming up on our first commercial break, but as we take that, I encourage you to think about someone in your life who needs some inspiration. Maybe someone who's been going through a hard time, a death, a divorce, an illness, whatever it is, and you've been walking that journey with them. Maybe this is the conversation that will encourage them to realize even what's going on with their own circumstances, there is still hope and there's still a lot of passion in the world and a lot of perseverance if you look inward too. You're watching Live with Laura. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Live with Laura. I'm your host, Laura Hettiger, and I'm thrilled to be sitting across from John O'Leary, who I just found out that if you would have had it your way, you would still be playing for the St. Louis Cardinals. But what position? That I don't know. Well,
Ozzie Smith is a friend of mine, so he's probably watching right now. He won't like this, but I would have been the one who replaced Ozzie Smith. So number one, I was coming for you, buddy. Okay. But yeah, I love shortstop. And just to say it clearly, I love baseball. My son plays baseball, as you and I were talking about during the commercial break, and I think there's a cadence about baseball that matches the beauty of summer and marches forward with the beauty of life. And it's not just the home runs and the triples. It's the pause and it's the boring pieces that allow you to turn to the person next to you and talk and have a conversation on life.
And it's baseball because you were born and raised in St. Louis.
Right.
You had a very unique relationship with a very well-known St. Louis broadcaster, Jack Buck. I gathered that your first son's name is Jack. Will you please share your story with Jack Buck? And I'm going to go out on a limb and guess why you decided to name your firstborn that name.
So we'll start with the name Jack O'Leary, and he's home from college right now. He goes to Indiana, but he's home. So I'm grateful for Jack's presence. You don't realize how much you love your kids until they're gone. And I think that is true not only for kids, but for life. The very thing you take for granted today, you will miss it when it's gone tomorrow. And when your kid launches off for school, you don't recognize how much you love their dirty beds and their Cinnamon Toast Crunch in the sink. And you're like, dude, clean up. until it's not there anymore. So anyway, Jack's home. I'm grateful for the mess that he brings with him. The name, I wanted him, when he looks in the mirror, to see in his namesake what he may not see when he looks at his dad. I make mistakes all the time. I'm an imperfect guy. But Jack, his namesake, is a guy named Jack Buck. And Jack Buck, I'm sure, made a few mistakes in his life. But as far as serving in the community, there probably was no one better in the history of St. Louis. Jack Buck was everywhere, doing everything for everyone, sometimes in front of the camera, sometimes in front of a microphone, frequently when no one was watching. And that's what happened in my case. The night I was burned, he was working at the MAC, learned that a little boy was going to die that night. And you saw it in the film. The scene picks up where there's a pair of tuxedo shoes that walk into a room, and then it dollies up and over, and you see all of a sudden William H. Macy, this great actor, portraying Jack Buck, a far better announcer. And Jack Buck sees a child in a hospital bed dying. My eyes are swollen shut, Laura, like I can't see, but I could hear, and I recognized immediately the Hall of Fame voice of Jack Buck say, "Kid, wake up. Wake up. You're going to live. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile. See you soon." And that was the visit. In the movie, there's a pretty nurse who kneels down and says, "Mr. Buck, he's going to die." That pretty nurse, by the way, is played by Colleen Buck. Jack Buck's actual granddaughter plays the nurse, looking up, telling her grandfather that he's going to die. So it's a wild Easter egg in the movie. But Jack in real life learns that I'm going to die. And rather than giving up, he takes it home and prays about it. The following day, comes back and visits again, and then again, and then again. This is not a child of prominence. It's not a child who's going to become a movie star in time. It's a dying 9-year-old nobody in a hospital bed at Mercy. That's not false humility. It's just the truth. And there is not a more difficult unit in healthcare than burn care. And Jack Buck, a man with no connection to this story, just kept showing up and serving this little boy. 5 months in hospital and eventually home. And we have, Laura, as you know, John O'Leary Day at the ballpark.
Another Easter egg I caught is Julie Buck is in it too. Jack's real daughter is there as he's getting the news that there's this 9-year-old little boy. Truly enjoyable, Soul on Fire. You can stream it right now on Netflix.
Let me just say one. So, and that scene opens with a good-looking man with white hair named Jack Buck Jr. So Jack Buck Jr. is in that scene as well. And then one more little Buck Easter egg. When little John is being rolled out of Mercy for the final time, you see all the staff, all the caregivers clapping. And over to the right, this beautiful lady is Carol Buck. So that's Jack's widow seated there cheering along with everybody else as little John is pushed out.
Yes, and Carol is doing well right now. All of this, it's really, really special that it all comes together in the movie. Jack believes in you. You believe in yourself. You start to believe in yourself. Your parents say, listen, this has now happened, and you have to figure out how to maneuver life in this way. It sounds like they had a tough love approach.
Well, you and I were talking off air about this. So aren't we lucky to have mean parents? Because the reality is you're not seated where you are if you didn't have mean, evil parents. And the reality is there's no way in the world you are interviewing who you are today unless I had equally, maybe even more, mean, evil parents who believed that a child could do things they did not think they could do. And there's so many examples, Laura. I think I told you earlier about this idea of eating. In the movie, it shows up. So if you want to learn about that, watch the movie. Maybe more remarkably, you're interviewing a guy with no fingers and no chance at life as a child. I can't do anything. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't stand. I can't hold a pen. I can't hold a fork. And my mother called a piano teacher, Mrs. Bartello, comes into our house. She puts her arm around me and she says, "John, this will be really hard. Welcome to life. And we can do it together." And with that, she grabs a little pen out of her purse, a little on fire, Soul on Fire pen available in all great retailers right now. She puts it on top of my right hand. I have no fingers. She wraps it with 3 rubber bands. And now a 9-year-old boy with no fingers in a wheelchair on a morphine drip finds himself playing the piano with a pen the entire time thinking, I hate my mom. Like, she's so mean. She's a horrible mom. And the only time she was an even more horrible mother was the following day when Mrs. Bartello came back to our house. And she was equally evil. And then on Thursday and Friday, we took the weekend off. And then on Monday, that mean mom goes back to work and opens the front door for the teacher. This goes on for 5 years. If you visit me in my home in Webster Groves, Missouri, you'll find a man who's employable and able to write and able to change diapers and hold baby's hands and now his wife's hand, because a mean mom did not teach him the piano. That wasn't what she taught him. She taught him agency. She taught him the ability to do really hard things, stop making excuses. You had that same mother in your life. We grew up in different states and with different last names, but thank God for tough love. I think we need a little bit more of that in this world right now.
And that's where I want to move this conversation into today, because you can see so much more of John's past on the movie. Today, tough love is something that I think people struggle with because we're living in a world of instant gratification and social media. I could log on to Instagram right now and go through 15 mom feeds that tells me I should do everything from tough love, kid, you're capable. You were burned on 100% of your body, and your mom is still saying, figure it out, you can do this. To, oh, you have to hold their hand through everything because the world is a dangerous place. How do you navigate being a parent with what you've been through and the expectations you have for your 4 kids?
Well, I think most of your viewers won't like what I'm about to say, but I think most people would agree I'm a horrible parent because I let my kids find problems. I let them make mistakes. I let them bloody their knees, and they know the front door is unlocked. And when they crawl home, they'll have a father who loves them, who pats them off, who takes them to the sink, who cleans them up, who hugs them tight, and then pats them on the bottom and says, go back outside, do better. I think in every previous generation for millennia, we weren't holding the hands of the children. We were loving them as we sent them away from the campfire. And we learned through mistakes, and we became better through hardship. Not the ease of life, the hardship of the struggle. So my mom and dad, I think one thing they did really well, they're not perfect people or perfect parents, but one thing they did for all 6 of their kids is they reminded us that we can learn from the mistakes we make. They set a foundation in our family of strong faith. We believe in a God of mercy and grace, but we also believe in a God who says, pick up your mat, go to work, wash your face, do better, repent. So it's not just coddling, and it's not just let them live on their own. It's this tension between profound compassion, but also figure it out. And that is, I think, what most previous generations did so their kids could go forward and do even bigger, better things than their previous generations were able to do. And if we're not careful, we will overlove our kids so they're not able to do that for themselves. And we see this. I have a lot of friends who teach at the college level, many more who teach at the high school level. These kids struggle mightily when hardship shows up in their life because it's been steamrolled away for them in the previous years leading up to that. And I think one thing our parents might benefit from is let your kids figure out how to endure hardship because the next hardship is coming, and then the next one, and then the next one.
Because life is all about hardships and struggles and then figuring out how to overcome them and still be God-fearing and hopeful for the good things that are going to come too.
Right on. I mean, there's a quote in Job, a man who's lost everything in his life. And he says, the Lord gives, the Lord takes, blessed be the name of the Lord. And I think that's a really good way to not just parent, but to lead. We think that we're only blessed when it's sunny and 65 degrees like today, May 11th. What a day to be outside. And it is. And yet, as your meteorologist will point out later, the humidity's coming. The heat will be here, St. Louis. Get ready for it. Thank God. And then hang on for it because the fall will come around the corner. And then winter, and it gets cold, and the trees all die. And so another thing my mom and dad taught us, my mom used to have a sign in her kitchen before I burnt it down. And the sign said, this too shall pass. And what that sign represented is this beautiful season that we found ourselves in as O'Leary. 6 healthy kids, strong marriage, 2 healthy parents, gainfully employed, never been sick. This too shall pass. And yet, my mother hung that poster back up again after the fire, and then they had a second house fire. And then my dad got Parkinson's disease. We've been through many, many, many hardships, and yet that little sign remains. This too shall pass.
And I think it's interesting that you point out even the good things will pass too, because so many times we turn to that saying when things are hard and we're in a hard season, we say, it's okay, this too shall pass. But recognizing when you are in the good parts of life, embracing that,
Right.
knowing it could all be changed with a flick of a match.
Well, look at your life right now. And when I had 3 and 2-year-olds at home, Beth and I were excited to have 4 and 3, 5. Like, we could not wait for them to grow up. And now we look back on it and we wonder, did we wish away the best days? And I don't think I'm the only parent guilty of potentially wishing away the best days. And right now, these are the best days for you. But at the same time, these are the best days for me. I got 4 teenagers. These are not usually bigger kids, bigger problems. But these are the best days. And then God willing, tomorrow will be even better days. But don't wish away the day you have today. This is the day the Lord has made. I mean, enjoy this moment.
I am very much enjoying this moment. I want to bring up some of the projects you have done over the last 18 or so years. In the movie, it seems like 2008 is a turning point, an inflection point year for you. What happened then?
Well, a lot of things happened in 2008. It began even before the movie begins, where I'm in the back row of a church service, in the back row because I got in late. So just before you should we sanctify O'Leary? No, we probably should not do that. So I'm in the back row. I was out too late the night before. I'm bored by the message. My arms are crossed. And our pastor was talking about the gift of talents, which was this call ultimately to take whatever you had and multiply. But Laura, I'd never felt as if I received any talent. Don't confuse the guy you're interviewing today with always being confident. I still struggle forward with it, with the inability to be confident, if I'm being honest with you. And I never felt as if I had talent. I'm inarticulate. I struggle with reflection and the ability to hold things. And the pastor said, and for those of you who feel as if you've got no talent, that was me. He said, listen to me, your life is a precious, priceless gift. You got one job, say yes to being used for good. So I knew enough to write down those words. Your life is a precious, priceless gift. You got one job, say yes. The following day, this is a true story, I'm working construction in Soulard. My old job was carpentry. Can you all think of a worse job for a man with no fingers than construction? Like, what are you doing, bro? I'm proving value. I don't believe it, but that's what I'm pretending. And in the movie, there's a woman who pulls up in a car. In real life, it's a phone call. And a little voice says, Mr. John, will you speak at my troop? And I would have never said yes because I don't like speaking. I don't like my life story. I don't like my reflection. But the day before, a pastor said to church, and now to you, Laura, and not all of us, your life is a precious, priceless gift. You got a job to do. Say
yes.
So ill-equipped for the journey forward, I said yes to that one little girl, walk into the schoolhouse 2 weeks later, crush a 4-minute talk in front of 3 Girl Scouts, walk out in utter failure. But a dad pulled me aside and said, John, that was awesome. Would you speak at my Rotary Club? And I stumbled into the yes, which is how you, from tragedies in life, whether they're when you're in college or when you're 9 or afterwards, you say yes to it. Watch what happens if you just embrace the struggle. So I struggled into a Rotary Club and then into a Kiwanis Club and then a Chamber of Commerce and then onward from there. And over the last 20 years, I've spoken 2,800 times, 50 states, dozens of countries, millions of people, 2 best-selling books, a film on all the streaming platforms right now. One of the highest rated films of 2025 was not Wonder Woman or Superman or Guardians of the Galaxy 15. It was a film shot on scene in St. Louis where it happened about a kid who got burned, about a family who was reduced to ashes. And then the community shows up, and then grace shows up, and then the yes shows up. And then watch what happens. So we've been living forward this story because I walked into a church 20 years ago hungover. beat down, bored by it all, but foolish enough to shut my eyes and say yes, which is enough. Like we keep thinking, well, what about the next day? Or what about Q4? What about AI? Like, who knows? Watch what happens when you just shut your eyes and faithfully say yes.
Don't you think your story resonates so much because it could happen to anyone?
I think it does happen to anyone. Something that has surprised me, and of course I'm not talking about fire, although that's common, more common than we know. I am talking about hardship. You and I are friendly enough to share some of the stories offline. I know you have struggles. You know I have additional struggles in addition to being burned. And I know every one of your viewers has their struggles. And you referred to it brilliantly a moment ago as an inflection point. An inflection point is that decision when you get to decide, what do you do next? Years ago, my dad, I was ready to go back to school, although I wasn't ready to go back to school. I'm 10 and a half. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't stand yet. Can barely hold a pen. I'm sure I won't make friends. I'm sure I'll never graduate, and I'm sure I'll never get a job or find love. And so my question goes back to one of your earlier questions was, Dad, why me? Why me? And my warrior father keeps trying to answer the question, but eventually he stands up, he shuts the bedroom door, walks back in, kneels next to me, puts his hands on my thighs, stares me straight in the eyes and says, John, curse word, why not you? Why not you? And then he said, this terrible thing has happened, and if you want to be a victim to it for the rest of your life, have at it. No one will ever blame you. You've endured the worst. He said, or you can choose to be a victor. You can choose to rise up with the help of others. And in every room we roll you into, or God willing, one day you walk into, people will look up in awe at what you've overcome and how you live your life. And so then, Laura, he goes, John, victim or victor, your choice, not mine. My father kissed me, stood, and walked out of that room. That conversation did not make the film. I don't think it made a book that I wrote, but it shaped my life. 38 years ago, a father kissed me on the forehead, and then I saw his backside shut the bedroom door, and I got to wrestle in a wheelchair. How do I want to live forward? And that same wrestle job is one everyone has in front of them every day, whether it's traffic on 40. They're still doing construction on 270. Will it ever get to an end?
No.
I've had kids at DeSmet for 15 years. The exit at Ladue is still under construction.
It always
why
is.
Me? That's one popular way to endure the misery of life. Why me? Alternatively, why me?
Not me?
Right on. And it's not just semantics. It's not just a fool's errand to put a little bit of icing on a very dark object. This is a way to live a life that first changes you and then changes everyone you interact with, which then changes you again.
Did you go back and tell your dad how important that conversation was in your life?
So the cool thing about my dad is he got Parkinson's disease and lived the message he preached. He spent 30-ish years wrestling with a very, very difficult disease. He spent more than 10 years in a wheelchair and about 5 years unable to speak. So I had a whole lot of conversations with my dad, with him unable to speak at all. And after a while, the best part about communication is not what you say. It's the silence. It's the moments where nothing needs to be said. So by the end of my dad's life, he had said everything he needed to say to me, and I'd said everything and more I needed to say to him. But on May 30th, so we're coming up on the first anniversary, at his home in St. Louis, Missouri, Dad passed away with his wife next to him with 5, 6 kids, myself included, around him in the bed that we used to jump on as kids. And he died, Laura, in the exact way he lived. He died with a goofy grin on his face. No speech, no final words, just joy. And it's important that your viewers and you and I recognize, like, you don't have to choose that. You can be mad at a disease progression. You can be mad at the unfairness of life. You can be mad about 270 still under construction. Or you can view everything as a gift. And it changes everything. My father chose to view life as a gift. And it changed generations of O'Learys that will follow him.
Are you feeling inspired yet, St. Louis? I am. I'm ready to go outside, see the sunshine, make the most of this beautiful day that we've all been given as I sit across from John O'Leary, and I'm still amazed that he has given us so much of his time. We're going to take a quick break, come back, wrap it up with St. Louis's own John O'Leary. We have a few more minutes together here with St. Louis's own John O'Leary. You just said, as we wrap things up, I can ask anything. Now, my husband is now very scared for you because a lot of crazy
Sorry,
things.
we're losing a reception. I think
yes.
the studio is losing power. We got to break out of here.
But since you are from St. Louis, favorite St. Louis dish?
Wow, that's loaded. I mean, I'm a boring guy, so the emo shows up at our house an awful lot on Fridays. When I came home from the hospital, that was one of our meals. My favorite meal that my mom makes is au gratin potatoes, of all things, and some kind of upside down pineapple casserole dish. It's salty and sweet. It's bread. It takes a couple years off your life every time you have a forkful.
You're fine.
That kind of stuff I love. I love Ted Drew's. I love our community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a local guy who candidly would benefit in some regards from living in a city with more direct access from its airport, because my work is mostly out of St. Louis. But we choose to raise our kids in a community that raised us well. So I love not only the food here, but the people here.
And the people is a big reason your movie was made. How did the community rise up to help Soul on Fire be picked up, and the names of the actors that were in this? William H. Macy, that's incredible.
For sure. So William H. Macy needs to get paid. So first of all, you got to figure out about how do we raise funds. And I'd never raised money for anything really, and didn't know how to do it. But I have friends, and I'm always amazed when you put in front of a friend an opportunity to do mission work, that the answer oftentimes is yes. And so we just reach out to the generous hearts of my friends gathered around St. Louis, Terry Schnook being one of them, and many others. And they're the ones who got behind this project. Zipper Zepra, who you may remember from media here in St. Louis. Zip is awesome. He started knocking on doors. Trudy Valentine, among so many others. Worldwide Technology, Enterprise, on and on from there. Tad Edwards. So they invested in this film. Rusty Keeley. The film came to life. We brought in the actors. We thought we would shoot in Vancouver for tax purposes. It's cheaper to shoot in Canada than in America. Sean McNamara, the director, came to town to meet just some people. And I took him down to St. Louis University, and he's like, "Where are we?" I'm like, "This is SLU." He's like, "This is SLU." He's like, "This place is incredible." And then I took him out to Mercy. He's like, "Where are we?" I'm like, "This is Mercy." Then we took him to Jefferson Barracks, where Jack is buried. I took him down to the Arch Grounds, Shrine of St. Joseph, and finally he says, "John, we've got to shoot the movie here. This city's unbelievable. It's a treasure. I can't believe I've only flown over this community. It's beautiful." So Sean decided to shoot the film here. It was shot in location over about a month and a half, picked up by Sony, rolled into theaters around the world, and now, as you mentioned earlier, it's streaming everywhere. The first week it streamed. The first 5 days it was downloaded 3.5 million times. So this little film from this little story from very massive hardship beginnings has now impacted lives around the world.
You call it a little film, a little story. And earlier you said you still battle with confidence issues. I sit across from you and I think, this isn't a little film, this isn't a little story, this is big, this is big, this is big. So how does someone who still struggles with confidence have the guts to go ask some of the biggest people in St. Louis for not only their time, but I'm guessing their effort, their energy, their money, their connections? How do you start making that ask? Because I know there are so many people struggling with just asking for what they want and need.
I've always found when you're asking for you, it's hard. But if you're asking for something bigger than you, it's almost easy. So I got nothing, candidly, out of the film. I have a beautiful art project and a film we can point future generations to. Like, your grandfather used to be something. Sorry that you never met him. But you know what? I asked on behalf of St. Louis for the money. We in our community have done a phenomenal job, I think, celebrating what we're not. And when we're celebrating what we are, we oftentimes celebrate the worst among us. Soul on Fire celebrates who we are, and it celebrates what we are when we're at our best. It celebrates the custodial staff members. It celebrates the frontline caregivers. It celebrates the radio announcers. It celebrates incredible organizations that step forward when the rest of the world would have stepped back. And it celebrates not only the people here, but the places here. So if you ever watch the film, you have to be moved when you see Saratoga Bowling Alley and the Gateway Arch and Busch Stadium 2 and these landmarks that so frequently when we live here, we drive right past because we know it. Then you see it on the screen, you're like, whew, that's pretty. It's beautiful. It's stunning. And that's what the global market is saying right now about St. Louis. But not only are the people and the story here beautiful, so is the place. So in some regards, Laura, we shot a beautiful commercial for what makes our community so remarkable in the first place.
I had so much pride watching it last night, and I found myself crying many times. My husband's like, this isn't even sad. I'm like, I know. Or this specific part, I know. I'm just so proud of it. And to see our community reflected in that way.
Right. So you asked how I asked those people. I asked for something bigger than myself. And I think that's important for your listeners and viewers to know, even in prayer, ask and pray mighty prayers. But I would encourage us, ask and pray them for things even greater than ourselves, and just watch what happens.
We only have a few minutes together. You overcame an unimaginable tragedy. There had to be a time, though, that you very much felt like you were stuck in simply survival mode. Some people watching right now feel like their life is in survival mode. What advice do you have for them to keep moving forward?
So this will take us into the second segment, the second hour with Laura, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be a good one, I hope. I'm going to go in a direction you probably weren't expecting. I would encourage your listeners and viewers to get up a few minutes early tomorrow, watch the sunrise, grab a journal and a coffee, and just ask the question, why me? And when we're stuck, one thing that begins to break us from that melancholy is recognizing how blessed we are. So the first thing I would do is set your alarm earlier than you thought you should. Go outside. You missed a good one today. And watch the light cut through the darkness. And as it does so, as you hear those birds sing, man, they're praying with you. Ask the question, why me? And answer it in a journal. Track the good in your life. It will expand. What you focus on grows. And the second thing I would ask is that your listeners, before they go to bed, ask the question, what more can I do? And the what more can I do at first is more selfish things like, oh, I could work out, I guess, in the morning. And, fine, that's fine. But when the question pivots a little bit toward others, it's hard to remain stuck when you're serving someone not named you. And that's not a knock against the I culture. But we will never be fully satisfied when our life is about us. It becomes far better when the life we've built, we can build up and share with those around us. And I look to the example of Jack Buck as a role model in this. He built a Hall of Fame career, success and status. And yet when you and your viewers talk about Jack today, it's generally not the calls. Smith Corks went down the line and right, it may go. That's a great call. But you talk about when you were at Carl's Drive and he bought you a burger. When you were walking out of Schneidhorst, he held the door open. When you were going up an elevator ride, he asked you how you were doing. It's the little things Jack did for others that we remember today, and that is free for all of us to do in our lives. So I would encourage us, number one, look east. And secondly, before you fall asleep, ask the question, what more can I do? And whatever you wrote down tonight, take action on it tomorrow.
This conversation has left my soul on fire. I am so glad you listened to your team to change your company's website and name to John O'Leary Inspires, because that is exactly what you do. And I know you at home or wherever you are listening, you feel it too. John, thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
I hope Beth had a wonderful Mother's Day.
We catered her. We spoiled her. Now she owes us for 364 days, and then we'll pay it back next year. Oh.
Moms, I totally get it. John,
God bless our moms.
You. Yes. Friends at home, until next time, thank you for listening, thank you for learning, and thank you for being live with Laura.